Hi, everybody, and welcome in to the Take the North podcast, a Chicago Bears podcast, along with Dan Wiederer of The Athletic. I am Mark Grote of The Score and the Rahimi, Harris, and Grote show daily, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., where I guarantee you we'll talk a whole lot of Bears, but we have free reign on this podcast to give it to you exactly as it comes to us. What's going on, Danny? How are you, buddy?
I'm good. I feel like we owe our audience an explanation of kind of our setting today. You're where you normally are in the NFL Network closet upstairs at Haugh, and I am down in the blue room here in the bowels of Haugh because we have a couple events here in the event center at the PNC Center, Grote, and we were scrambling to find some place for me to record, and so here I am in this blase room. Not the fun background that we like to have, but we're going to persevere and do a show anyway.
Haugh has been hopping today. I mean, when you pulled in, there was a line of cars just to get through security, and then of course the media. We are in the remotest of remote parking lots, and that lot was even filled. So
So
it's been a very company filled day today
that
out
was
here.
a wives' luncheon that was occurring here today. And I walked in a little bit with
Oh,
Scott Bear from the Marquee Network, and I said, "You need to find out what's happening in the Hall. You need to find somebody to go tap into that wives' luncheon because I'm sure that they're telling some juicy stories that could help us with our coverage of the Bears." But just so you know, I pulled in after a long line of wives pulled in front of me, and I parked in the parking lot up there right next to Simone Biles. That's one of those things where,
really?
where you're like, oh, okay, I guess Simone's here today. And it's just one of those weird moments. And she got out and was walking in with three other wives, and that's the way it goes.
Wow. Okay. Well, that all makes sense now because I wanted to do my live score report out in the atrium because the studio in which I am performing right now, the NFL Network studio, as you said, out here at Hall, was being occupied by somebody. So I like kind of dipped out into the atrium. I was like, oh my goodness, there's all of these women and there's some children in there as well. I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't belong here right now. So that clarifies exactly
And
what's
so
what's
then
been
there's
going on.
another event here late this afternoon, early evening, and you and I were both walking around. We're like, it smells good. And I came down the stairs and they had a full trough of chicken parm and steak and garlic bread, and there was some mini tiramisus and cannolis that I might have to go just kind of sneak a little handful of on the way out the door.
It
Then I'll
reminds me,
then I'll never
yeah.
be let back.
Yeah, that's the way it works. You get half of that credential pulled. Now that reminds me of when I was a child, and I have two brothers, and my parents they're big into bridge, still big into bridge. I have bridge parents; they like to play the bridge, and they would have people over like once a month, and my mom would buy all this fancy food, and she wouldn't allow us to eat it. But when that company left, man, the brothers and we would go to town on and my mom was like, "Go for it."
Yeah.
We're going to bed.
Yeah, so we'll see when the company leaves here tonight, and if we're
Yeah.
still around to pluck some of that the good grub.
I'll meet you on the atrium. All right, getting down to business. The injury report is interesting. Let me go through it, and then we will kind of pick through it and tell you what we think is the most interesting about it. But Grady Jarrett did not practice again because of the knee. Cairo Santos, your kicker, right thigh injury, DNP, did not practice. Noah Sewell still in concussion protocol, so obviously he did not practice. DJ Moore of the groin and hip injury limited. So that's really good to see that he was back on the practice field. Amen Ogbog Mamiga, who we haven't seen in a little while, was on IR. The window open for him, so he was limited today. DeAndre Swift, groin injury, limited. Meantime, Austin Booker, Travis Homer, and Jonah Jackson, all full participants. There's a couple of guys on the DNP list that we have to talk about. Dan, first of all, Cairo Santos. It appears, Dan, and you can tell me what you think, that we are trending towards another Jake Moody game at Soldier Field on Sunday.
I would certainly say it's trending in that direction. And Gertie, this is one of those unique sort of dynamics that pulls in the NFL sometimes, where you are, not necessarily subverting things with the way that injuries unfold, but you don't need to rush a guy back when you have another guy that you're interested in taking a longer look at. You know what I mean? And so now Jake Moody, coming off the performance on Monday in which he made 4 field goals in the game winner, might have another chance to show this coaching staff and this regime what he's made of. And so you don't have to sort of push Cairo Santos back into action. I'm sure Cairo's itching to get back out there because he doesn't want to lose his job. But one of the coolest things to come out of Monday night was the fact that Cairo Santos, as a team captain, was being ultra helpful to Jake Moody and helping him understand the field conditions, the weather in Washington, giving him little tips out there in Washington that helped him with his performance in the game. And so that's kind of cool. It's a little bit of insight into who Cairo is. But this is an interesting dynamic here at place kicker here. And I don't know where we're going to be when this month's end, but I agree with you that it looks like Jake Moody might be your kicker on Sunday at Soldier Field.
It feels like too, and again, I talked about this the other day. I asked the what I thought was a clarifying, I still think was a clarifying question, that when Cairo Santos is back and healthy, he is the kicker. Richard Hightower basically followed that up when we had a chance to speak to him today. But I just feel like there's this, and nobody's really saying it out loud, but this era of like, is that right? Is Moody, could he have a chance on this roster? I still think it's Cairo Santos, Dan, but I feel like there's the little sparks of doubt with this guy being in the building, even though it's for injury.
Yeah, I mean, you just don't know. It's just again, it's a league that is like this sometimes, and you just never know what direction a certain story is going to go. And so right now, we just sit in the seats that we sit in and watch it all unfold, and we'll see what that means on Sunday.
Couple other things here. We're going to get to our Take the North game spotlight here in a second and talk a little bit about the history of the Saints and the Bears, which is very interesting. And Dan wrote an article about it in The Athletic, so we'll get to that, plus 3 things to watch for Sunday's game. Another guy that I'm concerned about again for this week, the DNP, Grady Jarrett. I do not have a good feeling about him playing this week. I do feel like semi-optimistic that it's not like over the top serious, because I feel like they would have already put him on injured reserve if that was the case. But a little bit of mixed feelings right now on Grady Jarrett, who obviously was one of your most important signings in this offseason. He is definitely one of the voices of that locker room, as we've learned too from being in that locker room.
Veteran presence both inside the locker room and on the interior of your defensive line. And so he hasn't been able to get out to the start with the Bears that he maybe envisioned getting off to when he signed here back in the spring. Another one to just, kind of watch it unfold and see how fluid it is. Saturday is typically the IR day. And so if we get through Saturday and he's still on that 53-man roster, then I think you feel like you're in a good spot. But if they want to consider, yeah, then you go that route. You did mention a couple of these guys on IR. You only get, I think it's 8 guys within the construct of a season where if you put them on IR, there's only 8 that can come back off of it. And so you might be playing a numbers game there. You're bringing back Homer, you're bringing back Booker, you're bringing back Ogbongbemiga. But I don't think that's probably factoring in this decision. It's just a nice footnote to keep in the back of your mind.
Yeah, and we will continue to update you on what's going on with Grady Jarrett. The DJ Moore, really, really, really good to see that he was practicing today in a limited capacity. The only insight that I got on DJ Moore today was in the locker room, and I went up because we were all kind of waiting for DJ Moore. He didn't come in the locker room today, which surprised me a little bit because he usually is there every day. He doesn't mind talking about injuries. Like, he's one of those guys who you ask him a question, he'll answer it. Wasn't there today, so I went to his locker mate, his next door neighbor, Roma Dunze, and I just looked at DJ's locker and I said, "Is he okay?" And Rome smiled and said, "He's 100%. He's good to go. He's as good as he's ever been." So hopefully that is the case, but a little bit of sarcasm coming out of the mouth of Roma Dunze.
Maybe Friday is the day to get DJ at his locker and find out what exactly happened there in Washington. And again, I said this on Monday. There's a lot of conversation that surrounds DJ Moore, and there has been since he got here a couple of years ago. That's a tough SOB, and he rarely comes off the football field in games where he suffers some pretty significant health setbacks and injuries. And so you got to give him credit for that level of toughness that he lends to your football team. And we'll see if he's able to go this week. It certainly seems like the fact that he's back out on the practice field is a good sign.
Yeah, and I hope that our listeners and viewers are able to read between the lines on lots of things that we talk about here on the Take the North podcast. But it's really good to know that he was practicing. And to your point about how tough DJ Moore is, I remember a preseason game, and it was last year, not this past preseason, but the one before. Comes out of a game, he's hurt, and I'm like tweeting, because of my sideline experience, I'm like, he was doing things to me that said there ain't no way that guy's coming back out there. Next play comes back out there. So he's got his money, he got paid, all that kind of stuff. He insists on playing, and that is all you can ask for from a player like that.
It's a big deal, without question. And so that's one of those injuries worth keeping tabs on. I know you did mention DeAndre Swift. I did want to bring this up because DeAndre Swift added to the injury report today with a groin issue. He seems like he's doing okay, and a couple reporters had approached him at his locker this afternoon for a word, and he got out of there pretty quickly. And I ran into him in the hallway. He was going to get some lunch at the cafeteria, and I said, "That was the best move you made all week." And he just kind of laughed, realizing that he had made a pretty quick cut. So if that's any indication, I think DeAndre Swift will be just fine. I will say that dodging ABC cameraman Dwight Payne is a little bit easier than doing so against the Saints defense on Sunday. But DeAndre Swift seemed to be in good spirits, and I'd be surprised if that injury was serious.
Yeah, and you just want to see him follow that. It doesn't have to be that same way. I don't necessarily need a 55-yard run or explosive runs. All just to let's see that continue to progress, and I have some confidence that it will, just because of Ben Johnson and Dan Rochar and this coaching staff and Eric Bieniemy, which little by little, the buy-in is just real. I think from the media perspective, we're obviously going to have a less optimistic eye or a more cynical eye, but it does appear that things are heading in the right direction in that regard.
Yep.
Dan, I think it is time now for our Take the North game spotlight. And this week we have to focus on the article you wrote in The Athletic, which I've already heard all sorts of places. Like, where'd you get that info? Oh, my guy Wiederer is giving everybody this information about the history of the Bears and Saints. And I have to be honest with you. When I think of the Bears and Saints, I immediately think of the NFC title game in 2005 with the confetti falling and the Bears doing a job on Reggie Bush and the New Orleans Saints to punch their ticket to the Super Bowl. So I think of good things, but you uncovered the fact that this has been a tough team to handle for the Chicago Bears recently.
Yeah, you mentioned that signature win, January 2007 at Soldier Field, the one that got the Bears the George S. Hallis Trophy on really a fairy tale day down by Lake Michigan. And then they went on to beat the Saints a couple more times later in the 2007 season, again after that in 2008. December 2008, Mark Grote, was the last time that the Chicago Bears beat the Saints. They've played them 8 times since, and there is some trivia nuggets within this that will kind of blow your mind. Number one, December 2008, Caleb Williams is 7 years old. And by my math calculations, you can correct me if I'm wrong, he was in kindergarten back in Washington, D.C. the last time the Bears beat the Saints. His current head coach, Ben Johnson, he is fresh out of college in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, working up the road in Durham for eTelenext as a software developer. Right? So if this tells you how far back it is that the Bears beat the Saints, that should jar your mind a little bit. And then you've got this just string of 8 consecutive losses that we can rattle through them one at a time really quickly, and you can get your brain around it. 2011, the first loss in this string. It's 30-13 down in the Superdome in New Orleans. It's Frank Omiali replacing Gabe Karimi in game. It's Jay Cutler getting sacked left and right, like used to happen during that era. It's Sean Payton and Drew Brees registering their 50th regular season win with the Saints together. And so that was number one on that list.
I'm sorry. I got stopped at Gabe Karimi because it just reminded me of that long list of first round offensive lineman draft picks that went wrong. Gabe Karimi, Chris Williams. Who am I leaving out? There was a guy that went to was it Karimi that ended up going to Dallas and ended up having a pretty.
That was Mark Colombo back.
Mark Colombo. That was the other one. And if you want to go really way back, Stan Thomas. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Back in the Ditka era, Ditka's like, oh, you think this guy's good? All right, I'm going to start this guy, and that guy sucked. So yeah, that's where again my brain went. But carry on, Mr. Dan.
All right, 2 years later, 2013. Pierre Thomas, remember old Pierre Thomas, running back out of Illinois?
Yeah.
He scores 2 touchdowns for the Saints. Jimmy Graham goes for 135 receiving yards. Future Bear Jimmy Graham. Alshon Jeffrey sets a Bears single game record with 218 receiving yards. It's since been topped twice, once by Alshon Jeffrey, once by DJ Moore. But the Bears aren't able to win that game in 2013. That was my first year on the beat. I remember that day very vividly, with Alshon having all that production in a loss for the Bears. That was number 2 in the string of losses.
Just a point of clarification, it's Alshon Jeffries. Don't forget the Jewel S on the name, Alshon Jeffries.
That is my fault. That was a 26-18 loss. Alshon Jeffries, part of that loss.
And I'm
2014
for
Monday
our
Night
listeners
Football.
who are insulted right now. Like, Grote, you're an idiot. No, I am joking. Carry on, Dan.
2014 Monday Night Football. The Bears are in the middle of a tailspin. We all remember the free fall of 2014. It was the end of the Mark Trestman, Phil Emery era. They come on Monday Night Football in December. They get their doors blown off 31-15. At the time, there's a young New Orleans executive named Ryan Pace sitting up in the Soldier Field press box, looking down at discernible dysfunction on the Bears sideline and going, man, this place is broken. A month later, he's in the building interviewing to take the place of Phil Emery, hires John Fox to take the place of Mark Trestman, and says, boy, we're going to get this thing turned around. And certainly we're going to have a good time playing against New Orleans in the future, right? No.
Yes. Yeah. Right. And then he's here, and then he's not New Orleans-esque in any way, shape, or form. Apparently, Drew Brees was not walking through that door when he came to the Bears.
Pace overseas, 3 losses to the Saints. 2017, that game is best remembered for the Zach Miller touchdown catch. That was not only not a touchdown catch because Al Riveron decided to call it an incomplete pass because the ball moved. That one always bothered me. Oh, the ball moved when he hit the ground. Well, of course it did. That's gravity, Al. That's what happens. The ball's going to move when a big-bodied tight end hits the ground with the ball. It doesn't mean he didn't catch it. It was a touchdown, but unfortunately, Zach Miller suffered a career-ending injury on the play, as we all remember. Very scary week there because Zach Miller had to stay behind in the hospital in New Orleans for more than a week. Dislocated knee at I think it was a popliteal artery. I don't. Doctors will correct me on that. That was damaged and was causing some serious issues. You remember that, right? I know you were not yet on the beat.
I wasn't on the beat, but I do remember it. And like, what a great story Zach Miller had been with the Bears, and then that injury was just absolutely devastating, and obviously never played again, right?
No. They kept him around on the roster for a little while. The Bears did well by Zach Miller and supporting him through his recovery, through his rehab, trying to give him every last opportunity to come back. But that was too devastating of an injury for anyone to come back from.
I love that Al Riveron's name stuck in your head. It's like Hugh Holland's back in the.
I just remember Al Riveron used to put out the videos, and he say, "Here you can see the ball moves here when frame by frame sequence shows exactly." And you're like, Al, enough. Just stuff a sock in it and let's move on. That was a touchdown, Al.
Settle down, Al.
All right, we've got 4 more to get through. 2019 might be the most painful on the list, if you ask me, Grote, because that team, as you know, walked into that season with Super Bowl aspirations. They came back off their bye, and they seemed positioned to get themselves back right after a loss to the Raiders in London. Drew Brees was out. Alvin Kamara was out. And yet Teddy Bridgewater and Latavius Murray came into Soldier Field and beat the Bears on a day where the Bears weren't even that competitive. That final score was 36-25. It wasn't that close. Mitch Trubisky struggled all day. Matt Nagy was agitated as hell with his quarterback. Mitch couldn't hit throws. I think it was the next day where Mitch ended up putting up some garbage time production in the fourth quarter. And Nagy was quick to be like, that was all garbage time production. It meant nothing. And you had the sense that there was a little bit of a fracture occurring. And that, again, as I wrote in my article, that not only was Mitch struggling, but he was struggling with struggling, and that was the beginning of the sort of mediocrity snowball that the Bears couldn't stop in 2019 on the way to an 8-8 finish.
One of the most disappointing seasons, really, in recent Bears history, and that's a good symbol of how bad that season went. But wait a minute, somehow things got better in the year 2020, didn't they, Dan?
Well, the Bears made it to the playoffs in 2020.
Yeah.
But they didn't get better against New Orleans because during the regular season, in front of a crowd of 0 at Soldier Field during the COVID season, they lost in overtime at home to the Saints. That was a heartbreaking loss in a game most remembered, and I didn't remember this initially, and then was like, oh yeah, for Javon Wims losing his mind, going after Saints cornerback C.J. Gardner-Johnson, ripping his mouthpiece down, punching him twice, getting ejected, and creating quite a flood of embarrassment for a team that didn't really want to experience that at that time. I think you remember that explosion quite vividly, correct?
I mean, you talk about the beginning of the end of Javon Wims, who was like relative to having been a 7th-round pick, like there was some promise for him, but then he just started acting like that. Like that wasn't the first time or the only time that he acted out, did Javon Wims, but I found that all to be very disappointing. I think, Dan, you said that you had to jog your memory about that game. I think most Bears fans are like, oh yeah, the Bears did go to the playoffs in 2020. Like, that's why I say, like, Matt Nagy, even though there's nuance to it, a lot of it, as in the Bears were 8-8 and then lost that game promptly, the playoff game. Like, Matt Nagy's resume has aged well. He took the Bears to the playoffs twice. Dan's holding up 2 fingers now.
Two times.
Like we know what happened with Matt Nagy, and it didn't end well. But as we get far away, it's like Lovie Smith. His resume has aged well as well.
2020 was a weird season. It was a weird time in life. And so some of those things that happened within that 5 months of that season are a little bit blurry, but certainly not the playoff loss that season. Again, in the Superdome, New Orleans had clearance to have 3,000 fans in the building for that game. Nickelodeon game. So Mitch Trubisky got the MVP award from the Nickelodeon kids that voted for it, if you remember. But that game, if you're talking about the regular season game being the beginning of the end of Javon Wims, the playoff game was the end of Javon Wims. They called a play called Flash Right Atomic Bomb, little gadget play that had Mitch Trubisky taking a pitch, rolling out to his right, throwing a pass right on the money in the end zone to Javon Wims, who dropped it. And that was it. The Bears had a chance to tie the game at 7, and instead they were down big time. Their only touchdown in the game came on the final play of the game. They were already down 21-3 at that point. Mitch Trubisky throws a touchdown pass to Jimmy Graham, who promptly runs up the tunnel and runs right into his offseason.
A couple of things here. Studs, I'm going to have you jump on here if you're paying attention right now, because I know you got like 8 things that you do during these podcasts. But he said, like, it was almost like Studzinski was ready for me to say that Matt Nagy's resume aged well, because he wrote in the chat, his resume has not aged well. Stop it. And apparently Adam is doing something else right now because he's not
we'll get him in. Oh, here it comes. There he is.
And as you said correctly, yes, the Cordero Patterson, was that after the playoff game, man? Honestly, like I lose track of, like,
I actually can't remember if that one was the 2020 game or the 2019 game. It wasn't the playoff game, though. I know that.
Maybe, the 2019. Sure.
It was 2019, I believe.
Cordero Patterson very politely, in the heat of the moment, declined to speak to me during my post-game report, where it's every man for themselves. I've got Cordero, and he's like, no, man, I don't want to talk right now. I'm sorry. I don't want to talk. I'm like, thanks, man. Appreciate you leaving me hanging. What a character that guy was. But anyway, Studs, why do you hate Matt Nagy so much?
I don't hate him. I just don't think his resume is any different than what it was when he left. It hasn't aged well. It's like, yeah, he made the playoffs twice, but the second time was like the second time was like, they were 8-8 and they backed in because the Cardinals couldn't win a game at the end of the season. And it was the first year of that 7th playoff team. It was just a bogus year, and everyone knew it. And I don't look at that year as like, oh, technically they made the playoffs, right? Yeah, I get it. But I don't look at his resume as anything different than what it was when he got his ass fired deservedly. I can't talk right now. When he deservedly got fired the next season. He should have been fired that year, honestly. And the fact that they made the playoffs saved his job. So
yeah, but this is the bar we're dealing with Bears.
Well, yeah, the bar is low. Look, Lovie Smith Lovie Smith was looked at fondly even after he got fired. Like, yeah, it was a successful run. Yeah. He got fired after a successful season.
Good 9 years.
And so, like, his resume, again, like, has aged well because it was good. It was the best stretch of time that the Bears had in recent memory. Matt Nagy had one really good year where he was carried by Vic Fangio, and then had 2 8-8 seasons where he couldn't get his shit together, and then got fired because the team fell apart. And
we love this shit.
So all right, that's all I got.
Thanks, Adam. I'm glad you got a chance to get that.
Now go get our best bet ready for a little bit. 2020, Grote, if you remember, preceded the infamous Zoom press conference end of the season with George and Ted. The one that featured the Ted Phillips line that will go down in infamy with, have we gotten the quarterback position completely right? No. Have we won enough games? No. But everything else is there.
Right.
So it wasn't there, and unfortunately, it's all not been there ever since. One more game on this ledger. Tyson Bagent game, 2023 at the Superdome. Tyson Bagent actually played well for 3 quarters, then turned the ball over 3 times in the fourth. The Bears lost 24-17 with Justin Fields out with an injury. Bagent makes a start there and isn't able to get it done. And that's the 8th of 8 losses in this long run of futility against New Orleans, which means that the Bears are destined, Grote, to switch this thing up, to reverse the voodoo on Sunday as 5-point home favorites against the Saints team that's 1-5. It seems tailor-made for them to get this thing done, correct?
Yeah. And Dan, that said, one of my favorite segments of the week, Dan, please give us 3 things to watch this Sunday in the name of the Chicago Bears beating the New Orleans Saints. What have ye today?
History lesson is over. The crystal ball is out. The first thing that we're going to watch on Sunday is Caleb versus Spencer, Williams versus Rattler, 2 former college teammates at the University of Oklahoma University, as you would probably call it correctly. They don't seem to have much of a relationship. Hearing from Caleb Williams on Wednesday, hearing from Spencer Rattler from afar in New Orleans, it doesn't seem like there was a real tight bond forged during their time in Norman. But both of these guys have things that they need to be kind of focused on this week if they're going to lead their teams to victory. Spencer Rattler, through the team's 1-5 start, has been doing a really good job of getting the ball out. And Dennis Allen brought attention to that today here at Haugh. This is a young quarterback he's familiar with, who's completed more than 68% of his passes, only 1 interception on the season. And so the Bears are going to have to do their best to kind of shake him up a little bit, because he hasn't been incredibly error prone through the first 6 games of the season. Caleb, meanwhile, Grote, we're monitoring so many different facets of his improvement efforts. And I thought you and I both kind of agreed today that some of the criticism that Caleb took on Monday from Troy Aikman was echoed in some of the things we've heard throughout the week. And one of the things that the Bears are trying to get Caleb to do better is throw better balls that give his receivers a chance to run after the catch. A Ben Johnson offense relies on Yak City, yards after catch. And so for the Bears to get that yards after catch total to start spiking, they need their quarterback to be throwing more what the coaching staff here calls a runner's ball. And we heard from Declan Doyle today on this very topic. We're going to listen to that now, and you and I will reflect on the back end.
Declan, with the passing game, as you guys evolve to try to create more yards after the catch, what is Caleb's responsibility in improving that area of the offense?
Ball location is the number one thing. So we talk about a runner's ball, but anytime we're throwing the ball, within 15 yards of the line of scrimmage, that the ball location is precise, and it has to be for our player to be able to transition quickly into a runner, and then for our guys to be able to go block for that player. And so that's the number one thing that. He would come up here, and if I said ball location, he would laugh because he hears it all the time. But that's the biggest thing.
How do you create improvement with that?
That is the mechanics that he works with JT and individual things like that, and then also comfort in the concepts that we're asking him to put his feet in line with where he needs to throw the ball, his eyes in line with where he needs to throw the ball, and continue to accelerate that growth.
Grote, ball location.
Mm-hmm.
Ball location. Declan Doyle was very quick to offer that catchphrase to us, indicating that he is also offering that on a daily basis to the starting quarterback in this building. What did you make of that whole exchange and description?
Well, it just confirmed what Troy Aikman was saying. And this was brought up yesterday. I asked Caleb that very thing specifically, and he kind of generalized it into the whole, critiquing people saying I'm good, people critique this, that. So he didn't really want to play with that, but I think that it's pretty safe to say that Declan Doyle and obviously Ben Johnson have been working with their QB1 on putting their receivers in the better position. In other words, that's a real thing whether Bears fans want it to be or not, even though it came out of the mouth of Troy Aikman during the Monday night game.
During the 2017 pre-draft process, obviously we were very fixated on quarterbacks during that time. And I remember having a conversation with someone in the league that said people in the outside world need to better understand that accuracy at this level of pro football is about more than completion percentage, right? It's about how do you turn an 11-yard completion into a 35-yard completion, and a 35-yard completion into a 60-yard touchdown. Sometimes that's ball location, right? And so something that we're going to be watching closely with Caleb as he goes up against Spencer Rattler.
I'll just say one more thing. I'm okay with that too. You know what I mean? Like, that seems like, of course, we want all of this stuff to just be automatic for Caleb. And from the beginning, we wanted lights, camera, action. But I'm okay with that being the progression to the next thing that Caleb does. Like, he's starting to complete more passes. I mean, I know he's not at the 70% rate. He's just a little bit over 60% with the passes, but that does feel like something that is that Caleb would be very capable of indeed getting better at eventually.
Ball location.
That's right.
Number 2 on our list for Sunday, Dennis Allen versus the New Orleans Saints. Dennis Allen obviously has a long track record of coaching in New Orleans. Obviously last year dismissed there as their head coach after a long stretch as well as a defensive coordinator, worked under Sean Payton for a while. He doesn't seem to have any use for the storyline that's so ready-made for this week about his return or his old team's visit to Soldier Field to face him. Look, that's not a surprise. Dennis hits us with the look a lot at the start of his answers in press conferences. It's not a surprise that he's laser focused on this week's opponent, but this week's opponent also has a bunch of players that he should know very well on the offensive side of the football, which should give the Bears a little bit of a strategic advantage of finding ways to short circuit them. I would also say this, that I think that the Bears have shown here in their 3-game winning streak that they're on a little bit of a takeaway surge, Grote. They are now tops in the NFC with 12 takeaways. Only team better in the league is the Jacksonville Jaguars with 14. And so you've got a trend coming together. You and I talked earlier in the week about this isn't just a mirage anymore. This is something that's starting to build into a trend. And Dennis Allen was asked on Thursday about the takeaway surge that's been occurring here in the last few weeks.
It comes from preparation. That's the first thing. You're looking for your opportunities where you have an opportunity to make plays. You can't play every play on every play. You have to look for tactical clues that tell you where your opportunities might come to make a play. And then when those opportunities present themselves, you got to be able to take advantage of it. You have to create population around the ball. It's hard to take the ball away if you don't have guys around it. So it's things that we talk about each and every week. It's a big focus for us in terms of taking the ball away. I think it's one of the big determining factors in winning and losing ball games is the turnover takeaway ratio. And so that's probably been what we've done best. And we need to continue to do that.
On that first fumble recovery on Monday night, what did you see both in the ability of Tez to get it loose and then the number of guys you had going after?
I think, obviously the other night, the conditions I think kind of helped for, some of the ball security issues. But it's one of those things where that's how the ball comes out in our league. The ball comes out with top down punch outs. And so when you have a lot of guys swarming the ball, a lot of times these ball carriers start worrying about and more concerned about the guys that are trying to tackle them. And so they lose a little bit of focus on protecting the football. And that's when they're vulnerable to giving it up to us.
I love that. I love two things that he stood at. I love the way he said, maybe it wasn't clear to people, but when he said you can't play every play on every play, you can't always jump the route, you can't always take the risk, and that is well said, and it's nice to hear something other than, fundamentals have to be good. And I just love hearing create population around the ball as if the townspeople are coming and gathering around the field.
There are ways to create population, and that sometimes requires ball location. But we'll save that. We'll save that for another day. I do have a TTN challenge for the two of us here because it is October 16th. It is what? Are we in week 7 now?
Fair enough. Yeah.
Between now and the end of the year, you and I need to figure out a way to get one of these Dennis Allen Thursday afternoon press conferences to be lighter, to take him into a place where he will laugh and loosen up a little bit. I don't know if DA's got that in him, but I think it's up to us to respond to this challenge that I'm putting forth to figure out what would the topic of conversation be that would get DA to be a little bit more light.
Like if we were like, hey, what's the coolest place, just for instance, that you've been to dinner in Chicago? He would say, well, look, like
there's a lot of good restaurants, and like I'm not going to stand up here and single out one. You can get Italian food in one area, you can go down to Fulton Market, but look, there's a lot of good restaurants.
We're focused on fill in the blank team. How are your children? Well, look, we all have kids. Look, you have kids, I have kids. Let's just focus on Cincinnati.
We got to figure it out, because I think with the rest of the coaches in this building, I think we've figured out kind of the buttons. HT, we might need to, at least in podium version of HT, we might need to press similar buttons to try to get him to be a little more playful. But we'll get there. We're going to get there with DA, and I'm confident in us, me and you together.
Oh, I love this challenge. That's such a good idea. We will wait for a moment. We will conspire, and we will bring it to you on Take the North. You got one more thing for us, Dan?
Yeah, and we're going to go quick. We got a Bears running game that had an apparent breakthrough Monday night in Washington. We saw DeAndre Swift average 7.7 yards per carry in what was a breakout game for this season. Saints have been top 10 so far this year in yards per carry against, so they're not a pushover in running the football on. Demario Davis, the best player on that defense. I think he's in 36 years old now, but still playing at a very high level. Bears are going to have to be aware of that. Do we believe the run game is fixed, Grote? And do we believe that the Bears are going to have to lean into that on what I'm told by resident meteorologist Tom Waddle could be a very windy and potentially wet game on Sunday afternoon?
Okay, well, the Bears just showed in Landover, Maryland, that they are capable of winning a game and thriving in the water. Is it legit? The running game? I have no idea. I think it would have been naive for us to sit here and say, yeah, that's it. DeAndre Swift has figured it out after having not figured it out for a year and change up until this point. Although he's had some nice moments even last year, but God, I hope they have. And I do have more faith in this coaching staff that I've had in previous coaching staffs in terms of fixing stuff like that.
Yeah, and as we talked about last week, this is fundamental to the Bears going where they want to go this year, getting that run game established and consistent with success that can be sustained. We'll see if they can get it done Sunday.
All right, it is now time, ladies and gentlemen, for our Best Bet segment. This Best Bet segment is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. Our master of ceremonies on our Best Bet segment is our executive producer. He is Adam Studzinski. What have ye for us?
All right. So I went in a lot of different directions trying to figure out where to go on this, but I remembered a stat earlier that came out, I believe, on Tuesday about how bad the Saints have been stopping opponents on their first couple possessions, really, and how good we know the Bears have been on their first possessions. And that led me down the path of first quarter spread. So this is something we haven't done yet. This is who's going to win the first quarter and by how many points. So the Chicago Bears for the first quarter on Sunday are minus 1.5. And you make that bet there, it's a plus 110 bet. So that means they have to be winning by at least 2 points at the end of the quarter to win the bet. Okay. If you bet on the Saints, they're plus 1.5. That's minus 134. That means the Saints, all they have to do, if the Saints are trailing by a point at the end of the first quarter, then if you bet on the Saints, then you win. Does that make sense? And what do you think?
The Bears have outscored opponents 37-24 in the first quarter so far this season. I'm going to say that they're going to get off to a good start against the Saints on Sunday at Soldier Field. I am going to say that they're going to score on their first possession of the game. I am going to say, Studs, that they are going to cover that 1.5 in the first quarter Sunday at Soldier Field. Grote.
I agree with you, and let's not just let that slide by so quickly. What Dan just said, remember how painful it was for a long time for the Bears scoring on either their first drive or even in the first quarter. And they have seen, because, they have scripted plays and all this year, that they often have scored even on their first possession. So I am with my partner, Dan Wiederer. Yes, I think the Bears outscore the Saints by at least 2 in the first quarter. This is just not a very good team, the Saints. So I do think that the Bears will follow through with that. Studs, what do you think?
I'm with you guys. I think they'll be winning by at least 2 points at the end of the first quarter and ideally more. And yes, it is very refreshing to watch a Bears team. I think did the Bears score 10 total points in the first quarter all of last year? Isn't that
20,
what it was?
27 total points in the first quarter all last season. They already have 37 this season. So that tells you a little bit about those early starts.
Was it like 10 total points on their first drives all year or something like that? Or maybe that was a stat.
I think it was 6. Yeah. I think it was 6 on their first drives last year. I don't think they scored a touchdown on their first drive the entire season a year ago.
Yeah, and then the first drive of the whole season this year they scored a touchdown. So yeah, it's really refreshing to watch them score points early in the game for once. So yeah, there you go. I thought that was
love
a
it.
fun one.
Nice job, Studs. And this Best Bet segment was brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. It's prediction time here on the Take the North podcast. Dan, would you like to begin with predictions today?
Would I ever?
Okay.
Would I ever? I'm giving you Chicago Bears 31, New Orleans Saints 20. I realize that this is a 1-5 football team coming in to play you on your home turf. I know the last Sunday night to Monday or the Monday night to Sunday afternoon turnaround didn't go very well for the Bears from week 1 to week 2 when they got their doors blown off in Detroit. But this is a totally different team than it was a month ago. This is a totally different opponent, a totally different dynamic. And while this looks to a lot of people like a potential NFL trap game, I think the Bears have enough coaching competence, enough locker room focus to go ahead and put together a winning game plan. They win by double digits, and they really don't even need to sweat it as much as they've had to sweat their last 2 victories.
Yeah, I'm pretty with you, and especially when I hear people from Saints reporters and people who are very insightful about New Orleans refer to Spencer Rattler as a check down artist. I think that portends well for the Bears defense, and I don't know if they're going to be able to force as many turnovers because of that. And as we've mentioned, 6 TDs to 1 pick this year for Rattler. I like the Bears to win this game 24-13 at Soldier Field. No letdown for the Bears. They will extend their winning streak to 4 games. Yeah, 4 games, and become 4-2 and have a clearer picture and path for the rest of this season. Adam, did we lose Adam again?
He's back.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot we had to do it. I went like 2 or 3 weeks without doing predictions because of all the stuff that was going on in my life, and I kind of keep forgetting that we have to do it. So I'm gonna go with the Bears winning. Also, I think that the idea of it being a trap game, like I understand that because this is coming off of a game that they had to put a lot into to win against a better opponent in the Commanders. I don't know. It's tough for me to say that the Bears are at the point that they actually have trap games. You know what I mean? I don't know if they're like at that level, but they're not a bad team. We know that. I think they're better across the board than the Saints, save a couple players here and there. So I think they win the game, and I'm going to go with a score of 28-17.
Okay, 28-17. So decided victory.
Three 11-point victories by all of us. Every single one of us picked an 11-point Bears victory. Well, that means the Saints walk out of here a 1-point winner.
I believe they're favored as of the last time I checked. The Bears are favored by 4.5. I think is what it was down to. Which, the last time the Bears were favored by more than a field goal in any game, I think it's been a while. So we'll see where it's at when the game starts. But yeah, it's refreshing just to see even the betting world say, yeah, we have faith in this team to beat an inferior opponent.
Good things are happening right now for the Chicago Bears, and it is refreshing when we can all say positive things and all pick the Chicago Bears to win. Dan, anything else that you would like to get off your chest here on the mighty Take the North before we exit for another day?
It's all off my chest. What a fun episode this was. We keep having fun, and Grote, man, this football team is more than a month removed from their last loss. If we can keep this mojo rolling inside this building, it's an enjoyable place to come do your work.
No doubt, sky's the limit. There is a unpredictability about this team, but I mean that in a good way. Who knows where it goes? But we're all picking wins over the Saints. For Dan Wiederer of The Athletic, for Adam Studzinski, our executive producer, I am Mark Grote saying thank you for listening to and watching the Take the North podcast.
Ball location. Great talk. See you out there.
Popular.